Hello, and welcome to the Students of S.H.I.E.L.D., the beginning of what will be our Marvel Fresh Start #1 reviews as we go through each Fresh Start book and review and give our thoughts on each one of them. I'm Mike, and I'm joined by.
I'm Vincent.
And I'm Dan.
And Dan, where can people find you on YouTube?
You guys can find me on my own channel, Mandac, Mandac, all one word. I do haul videos and Epic Collection podcasts, all that stuff. So check me out, yo.
And as we get into looking at the Fresh Start, we're kind of like we have a backlog of them to look at now, but we got 4 books for today. So we're going to be looking at, in this order, Quicksilver No Surrender #1, Ant-Man and the Wasp #1, Tony Stark Iron Man #1, and finishing it off with Avengers #1. So, Vince, you are going to introduce us to our first book, Quicksilver No Surrender.
All right, so Quicksilver, it's written by Saladin Ahmed, who was recently got some acclaim for Black Bolt, and it's drawn by Eric Nguyen, who drew some of Old Man Logan at the end of Jeff Lemire's run. So this is spinning out of the Avengers No Surrender event, which was like a weekly series with all the Avengers writers. They smashed it all into one series. I didn't read that, so I have no idea what happened in it. For the most part, I don't really know what Quicksilver did, if anything.
I read half of it.
Yeah.
I haven't finished.
I think Quicksilver, in the very beginning of this, some of the plot is probably picking up from that, but it's not super important. I don't really think it should be subtitled, but I guess they thought it would sell more of people jumping over from that Avengers book. So Quicksilver, he's the fastest man alive in the Marvel Universe, though he's not nearly as fast as the Flash. And so in the beginning of the issue, we get kind of a bit of backstory. He talks about Django Maximoff, who raised he and his sister, the Scarlet Witch. We don't get an explicit reference to the recent retcon with the High Evolutionary and everything and making them not Magneto's children. And once we get past, it's combining kind of his backstory with the way that he sees the world. And he's talking about, okay, other characters, like, for example, Silver Surfer and Spectrum, aka Monica Rambeau, they can get really fast, but for them, it's a little different. For me, I'm all about speed, and speed is really about living and breathing speed. And some of this goes back to Peter David, where in X Factor, Peter David was like, Quicksilver, he's not exactly super fast. That's his default. So when he's quote unquote normal, he's actually slowing down. And so this is why he's a petty person, which he acknowledges himself in this issue, and why he's kind of an asshole. And so the plot, he's chasing some dumb orb, which villains have other heroes trapped in. That's probably coming out of No Surrender. I don't really know what that is about. And he's going faster than ever to catch up to it. He finally gets it and like smashes it, I guess. And then time freezes all around him completely. Or maybe he's trapped himself out of time. We don't know what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on. Art-wise, everything in the background from this point mostly goes grayscale, except for him. And his costume's not atrocious as it has been in the past sometimes, but it's still not the best Quicksilver costume. And so with everything frozen around him, he fucks around for a little bit. He runs up on Magneto and messes with him. And again, no reference to, this guy's my dad, or even, I thought this guy was my dad for a long time. He also screws with Johnny Storm, who Johnny Storm was dating Crystal when Quicksilver stole his girlfriend. And then eventually they got married, but Quicksilver's an asshole, so they divorced. But he gets bored pretty quickly and very lonely. So he runs around trying to do even more stuff to distract himself. And then a mysterious energy copy of him attacks a barista he barely knows. So he defeats it. And then the final reveal is that there are several of these kind of energy copies of him running around, screwing around with stuff. And so it's like, what the hell is going on? And is he fast enough to stop all these copies? So what did you guys think of this?
I'll say this right now. I don't like Quicksilver. I fucking hate him, and I think he's stupid, and he's always a dick and never adds anything to any book I've ever read him in. But you know what? Saladin Ahmed, you got me to care just a little bit about him. So you know what? You did your job. Easily enough, this is the best art on any of the books we're going to be talking about today, in my opinion. It's a lot of the art reminds me of Jock, which is really interesting to take for a speedster because I've never really seen that style done for a character with that kind of superpower. And the colors and the inking are really, really vibrant and bring it out, especially with the scenes where he's running. Overall, I'm intrigued to see where the book goes because as it spins out of No Surrender, I'll probably eventually read that. And Quicksilver does have a kind of pivotal role to it. But overall, I mean, it's a competently written book. I gave it a 3 out of 5. The art for me definitely carries it. And as far as pulling, trade waiting, or skipping it, I would actually be down to trade wait to see how this thing goes out.
Yeah, Dan, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, you guys pretty much touched on a lot of the stuff that I was going to mention. I mean, obviously, like you said, this spins out of No Surrender. So for someone like me and like you guys who's never read it, it's kind of tough to pick up on some of the things that he's mentioning. But I think the book does a good job kind of going through his whole history in the first few pages. Some of that stuff I'm vaguely aware of. I've read Quicksilver, in the early Avengers days, up through some of the later stuff, in the Stern run of Avengers. He's also in there, I think, too. But just like you guys said, I mean, the art's great. I just, after a while, it was just a little boring for me, to be honest. I'm kind of in the same camp as Mike. I kind of want to wait and see the trade and see what this is. This doesn't really seem like something that I'm going to be following like every issue. And that's just because, I don't think I've had enough exposure to Quicksilver yet to really form an opinion on him. Although the stuff I have seen of him, he is kind of a dick, as I'll agree with Mike. But no, I mean, yeah, the art's great. I'm always a big fan of like when the art can tell the story, and this is kind of how it is sometimes for some of the panels, especially during the fight and all that stuff. There's a lot of moments where you just get art, and the art sometimes tells a lot about the character and all that stuff, and I appreciate that a lot. I think, doesn't he also mention something about his sister too, Scarlet Witch and all that stuff?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So I mean that whole relationship's a little bit complicated too. Especially during the Civil War II era, which was pretty recent, I guess, 2 years ago.
One of my
yeah, I mean, I probably, yeah.
You finish. I'm sorry.
Well, no, it's okay. I mean, yeah, I would just give it a 3 out of 5, like you did. I'm probably gonna trade weight as well. That's pretty much it. Sorry, what were we gonna say, Mike?
I just wanted to add, like, I don't know why we need a Quicksilver ongoing where he's the solo star. Like, he's a character that very much works when he's on a team or part of an ensemble cast. So I think the book doesn't, like, it's already an uphill battle because I don't really think Quicksilver sells that well, especially on his own.
I definitely agree he works best in a team dynamic, especially given his complicated demeanor. But I will note this is a miniseries.
Yeah.
So just some of my quick thoughts. I agree. The art was the highlight for me here, but also I think Ahmed was pretty good with the script and pretty decent with the characterization of Quicksilver. And so I would give it a 4 out of 5, a little bit higher than you guys. And I'm hoping when this is all said and done, it'll be a nice, fun, maybe standalone trade despite the subtitle. Because in this first issue, it relies on some stuff, but I don't think you need to have read Avengers so far.
And like you said, this miniseries is kind of possibly going to live or die on whether this is going to be a great standalone Quicksilver story or is it just going to end up being some inconsequential tie-in material to an event.
Yeah. All right, Dan, you want to take us over to Ant-Man and the Wasp?
Yeah. Well, just one thing to just to close with Quicksilver real quick is another thing that really boggles my mind is like that this is a solo series, but like Quicksilver is dead in the MCU, and like I know that doesn't dictate everything, but with Marvel Comics these days, a lot of like the series that come out are dictated by the movies. It seems like, so it's just weird that like Marvel picked this character to do a solo series with. I mean, maybe they just figured they tried it, but I don't know. That's just kind of the thing I talk about in closing, but
Yeah.
it's a little weird. So speaking of capitalizing on movies, our next comic is Ant-Man and the Wasp #1, which I guess came out. Was this released right before what do you call the movie, or did it come out after? I guess not
It
after.
was before. It's kind of hugging around it.
Okay, so I guess that was timed perfectly. But yeah, so this movie or this comic is obviously the Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's not Hank and Janet as we see in the first panel. We get a good synopsis about Hank and Jan's relationship, all that stuff, and it's kind of psychs you out because it's kind of like, oh, this is how they are. This is how they came to be. Fighting all these different villains and all this stuff, and I appreciate it because as a big fan of Ant-Man, I actually read all that stuff. That included villains like Whirlwind, Black Knight, and the Living Laser. But then we're told by Mark Waid, who is the writer on this book, that the story's not about them. Instead, it's about Nadia Van Dyne, who is Janet Van Dyne's adopted daughter and Hank Pym's official daughter, right? I got that right? Okay, cool. Which is a little weird because, I mean, I know she's existed in the universe for about, I think, a year or so now. And it's weird because, in the movies we have Hope. But anyway, so pretty much the issue opens with Scott Lang chilling out in the Nova Corps, out in space somewhere. And he tries contacting Nadia to get in touch to be brought back to Earth. And, Nadia, being the Wasp and I guess being super smart, unlike Scott in this issue, she tells him, she's like, oh, well, I'll teleport you back here. Just make sure you're in this spot so I can teleport you back through space. And the reason why Scott needs to come back is because he needs to go to Cassie Lang's birthday party because he got flowers from outer space or some stupid shit like that. So he tries bringing Scott back, and obviously Scott fucks up, so they miss the window. So then Nadia has to go into the quantum realm to save Scott, and then that's pretty much the rest of the issue. We get both of them kind of stuck in the quantum realm, fighting this like big like blackish red like demon guy who's like going around and like killing things in the quantum realm, and it's honestly kind of hard to describe a little bit because it's a little bit boring, I guess.
Are they in the quantum realm or the microverse?
Oh, microverse. I'm sorry. But they say quantum as a lot in this, so I don't know if I don't know what it is. I mean,
I think they're in I think they said they're in the microverse, which is like an offshoot of the quantum realm or something.
Okay,
they're kind of interchangeable.
Yeah,
it's just the movie one more than the other.
Yeah. So then the end of it, they end up defeating this like monster that's going around and like killing all these people or all these like creatures in the microverse / quantum realm, whatever you want to call it. They defeat it with Nadia's like wasp stingers, but then at the end it's revealed that like Nadia's not feeling all right. Like she has like these red eyes, which I don't know if that means she's infected by something. And at the end they're pretty much stuck in the quantum realm or microverse. I don't know what it is. Overall I enjoyed this issue. I mean, like it was, in some parts it was kind of a little boring, but like once we got into the quantum realm, it was pretty cool. Like we were talking before we went on air here, there is a little bit of like a lack of chemistry between Scott and Nadia. And, I guess that's just because it's the first issue. Maybe it'll get better as we go along. But I'm interested in Nadia. I had to go back and read the Unstoppable Wasp stuff because I think I'm missing a lot of backstory there of that. And also Scott Lang. I haven't really read a lot of Scott Lang's. Well, actually, I've read Scott Lang stuff from Iron Man. But
book, right?
What'd you say?
You read the Nick Spencer book, right?
Yeah, we read the first arc, but I still have to get the complete collection and read the rest of the stuff. So I want to kind of read that and get some more backstory. But, like I said before, Ant-Man's probably one of my top 5 favorite characters. So I kind of want to see this through. So overall, I would give it probably a 4 out of 5 because, again, it's a little shaky to start. Like we said, again, before we went on air, Mark Waid's writing this book, which is a little curious, I guess, for me. Doesn't seem like a book that he would normally write, but whatever. We'll see what it is. He's written some good stuff before, so I'm excited. But yeah, that's it. What do you guys think?
Vince, you want to go first, then I'll finish up.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of weird to have Mark Waid on this. It seems like he's kind of like the old guard. He's very, very experienced, and Marvel has so many of these young writers that it seems like oftentimes they're putting Mark Waid on the very safe options. Like they have him fill in on Captain America while they're waiting for the next big run. They have him handle Avengers for a while, and now he's on this tying into the movie. Which at least, like, I respect that there's a little bit of continuity coming into this, which is rare in Marvel. So Scott Lang he talks about how he's coming from outer space because he was hanging out with the Guardians of the Galaxy, which was in Jerry Duggan's run, and then Mark Waid was already using Nadia in his Avengers run. But even still, I think Waid is writing Scott kind of rough. I think he writes him dumb a little too much, and it's not the same kind of humor. It's not very close to the humor that Nick Spencer used in his Ant-Man run, and it's not really Paul Rudd either. It's like, and it's not even in the middle. I didn't really like the voice for Scott Lang in this issue. And then as far as the art goes, the art's just fine. This is Javier Garrón, who I associate with Aaron Cooter because he helped fill in on Death of X and in Humans versus X-Men, and his art's just fine. I didn't think this was that great. I flipped real quick through the second issue, which goes into a lot of Nadia's origin. So at least doing some interesting stuff maybe as they go on. But I didn't really enjoy it, so I would give it a 2 out of 5. And unless it really turns around in subsequent issues and I hear about that, I might not even read this in trade.
Exactly what you're saying. I gave this a 2 out of 5 as well. As I was reading this, I just couldn't get any sense of ground for these characters because I'm unfamiliar when it comes to reading an Ant-Man book already. I didn't read the Nick Spencer stuff. I want to read that. But at the same time, there was nothing grounding me to any of these characters. They're even being unfamiliar, there's something felt off about them, especially Scott, since he has like a master's in electrical engineering, right?
Yeah.
So, and he's written kind of dumb. And I'm like, and then just there's this overall sense for me of who is this book for?
Mm-hmm.
It's clearly a movie cash grab tie-in, where in the sense of it's a book with the same name that you're if you liked the movie, read this. It's only a miniseries.
Yeah,
and I can only assume that they're going to get out of the microverse quantum realm by the end of this. There was just nothing grounding me or interesting me in this at all, and especially with the art just being fine. I'll touch on this when we get to Iron Man, Tony Stark Iron Man as well. It seems that Marvel is getting away from the more realistic kind of looking art for a little bit more hyper styled, almost cartoony kind of art. A lot of the books have that right now, and that's fine, but it just, I mean, every book kind of looks almost the same to me. The strength of when we were talking about Quicksilver is that the art was so different that it definitely helped carry the book. When the art is just kind of very, I don't want to say bland because it's good, but it's just so nonchalantly there. There's nothing really here to keep me interested. So I'm definitely skipping this. I'm not really interested at all. So
yeah, I think it's odd that the movie's out, and at least so far, it's only been out a weekend, 2 weekends maybe. It's doing really well as far as
I'm more money in the first one.
Yeah, so I don't know why they went with this direction with the miniseries. What they really needed to do, in my opinion, was restart a Scott Lang ongoing series. And I wouldn't necessarily put Mark Waid on it. I would try and find an interesting.
I completely agree. I don't know why Mark Waid is writing this book, other than for the facts of what we stated. He's a very safe choice. You have these new up and coming writers. Put them on it. At least let them try it out. Like, I know we joke off the show that Matthew Rosenberg's writing everything, but I know there's other guys that want to try to cut their teeth, and this would be a perfect book for a guy to do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not really high stakes. I mean, like, it's Ant-Man, but like I don't really see, like, Ant-Man's probably not like a high stakes book for Marvel at this point. I think they're kind of rolling with Avengers, Captain America, Iron Man, that type of stuff. I don't know if I think Ant-Man would be a perfect spot, like you guys said, just to put someone new on, give a new twist on it, especially with like the whole concept of like the quantum realm microverse stuff. Like, I feel like that whole universe is kind of like not executed as well as it should be in this first issue. I think that there's so much more to explore with that type of realm, other than having some like random monster run around eating people and like doing rainbow color shit. I don't know.
I agree. And with those components, it offers you a writer a lot of creativity to play around with the science fiction scientist aspect of Ant-Man. And a lot of Marvel characters, and this just kind of comes out like it almost feels like an afterthought.
Yeah, and that's like the whole basis of his character is, even going back to his origin, like, the whole science fiction, discovery, that type of stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I guess Dan, we're gonna throw it back to you again as we're gonna talk about our next book, Tony Stark Iron Man #1.
Ooh, okay. All right, so I'm really excited for this. Obviously, if you guys both know, Tony Stark, Iron Man is my favorite character.
I've never known that.
Yeah, you would never would guess. But yeah, so I guess one good thing about this series is, jumping into it. I have not read International Iron Man or the Iron Man by Ironheart, Riri Williams type of stuff. So this seems like a good spot to jump on. I mean, there are a few things that are hinted to, but I'll get to that as we go along. What'd you say?
You can say it's a fresh start.
You can say it's a fresh start. Tag of the video. Anyway, so basically the issue opens with a flashback to 25 years ago to Tony kicking some like guy's ass in a robot soccer tournament. And then the guy's name that he destroys in this tournament is Bang. I guess that's how you pronounce it.
BHNG.
Yeah, Bang Robotics. And I guess like Tony's robots like can play music too. So that was kind of like a fun way to open it up. I was a little curious as to what, like, we're talking about 25 years ago, and I was like, whatever. So we open up to that, and then we go to present day, and the same guy, Bang. I think his name is Andrew Bang.
Yeah,
Andy Bang. Yeah. So he's in his garage, kind of working on some robotic stuff, and then Tony walks in the door. He's like, "Yeah, I'm basically buying your company." And Andy's like, "What do you mean by that?" And he's like, "Just come with me, and I'll show you what we're working on." And they get into a car that flies because Tony can do that shit. And they're taken to this new company called Stark Unlimited, which is obviously Tony's company changes over the years. Stark Industries, Stark International. And then now we have Stark Unlimited, which I'm okay with. I don't really see an issue with that. Stark Resilient. Yep, Stark Resilient from Fractions Run. I forgot about that. So, it changes. And then the first person we meet as he lands is Bethany Cabe, who, longtime Iron Man fans will know is, the personal bodyguard, whatever, of Tony. She was in the original David Michelini run. Demon and Bottle, that type of stuff. She's also makes a comeback in Fractions Run, but she's in this run, which I'm excited. She's a really important character for Tony's history. So she kind of like is just there just to welcome them to the place, and then Tony shows Bang where he's going to be working, and that's where we meet Jocasta, who is kind of like the AI. I don't know if she is like operating the OS system for like Tony's suits now. But that's a little weird, I guess. We'll probably discuss that as we go along here.
Well, the thing is, it Jocasta's there as like the head of the robotics division,
Yeah,
and Tony's bringing Andy Bang on because he needs help getting his nanotech and other robotics to work together in tandem.
yeah. And then we actually see that kind of come to fruition here. Well, yeah, start to become useful as we go along here, because just as like Tony's showing Andy around, Fing Fang Foom actually shows up and starts terrorizing the city, which again I really kind of like, because Fing Fang Foom's a very old Marvel villain, very old creation dating back to the golden age of Marvel, but is also a great Iron Man villain. So we get a big showdown with him, a lot of fighting and stuff like that. And we're also introduced to the Fing Fang. Is it the Fing Fang Foom Buster or this the Foom Buster?
The Fin Fang Foom Buster.
Yeah. So I think that was a little over the top, but I think it's kind of cool. And then it separates into like a smaller suit that had like, I think it had wings or something on it. So I don't know if that's kind of like calling back to like the Infinity War suit or whatever.
It is a little bit. It seemed
Yeah.
like the parts, because we only get to see it really in one page.
Uh-huh.
It looked like they were like jet stabilizers that
Yeah.
shot off after he left the more mech armor, but that might also have been what allowed him to shoot the nanobots inside.
I think that's what it is too, because then, basically Tony sends the nanobots into the Fing Fang Foom to kind of kill him, I guess. Um, and I think Tony's like thrown into the water for some reason and almost drowns, but then he gets out all right, because we can't have our main character dying in the first issue. That would really suck. So the rest of the issue is just Tony, I guess, being interviewed about the whole incident, what happened, and he also mentions this, and I thought I'd bring it up because I noticed it when I was reading it. He also talks about how his company has a subdivision called Stark Solutions, which is a callback to the Volume 3 run by Kurt Busiek. So that's kind of cool. I don't know where they're going to go with that. I don't know if that was just a nod or if they're actually going to do anything with that. And then the last part just talks about how like Iron Man's armors are like representative of his company, and it's not just him. How it's like everyone in his company is working on these armors, and they all have I guess a hand in the pot, I guess. And then we get that really cool shot, which I think I remember Vince showing a while ago, where all these people were saying like Tony Stark, and then he asked the kid, he's like, "What's my name?" And he's like, "You're Iron Man." And I thought that was really, really cute and clever and pretty good.
What I like about that moment is that he reminds everyone that Iron Man's not the suit; it's head, which is what I've always liked about Tony Stark. But I'll let you finish up, because I have some things to say about this book. I'm not really happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a fun entry to the the Tony Stark mythos. I mean, there's a lot of familiar faces that kind of show up. It has that kind of fun vibe that an Iron Man book should have. Obviously, with the movies being so popular, you're kind of struggling with having Tony Stark be a character and also trying to write Robert Downey Jr. as the voice of the character. So I can kind of see that a little bit in some parts of this book. So you can't really avoid that. But I mean, overall, we'll see where it goes. I mean, comparing it to Bendis and Fraction, I mean, I think it has the potential to be good. We'll just see what other characters they want to use, because that's the thing. I want to see them use characters that we know from the Iron Man universe. I mean, I like that they're including Jocasta, but I want to see some of the older characters make a return, and that's what I love. I guess call me old fashioned, but I think that would definitely help this book.
I think there's definite room for that, but I also think you're going to see a lot of new characters as well, because he concludes that press conference with everyone behind him is part of his new company, and Brody and Bethany Cabe and Jocasta, but also there's Andy Bang, and there's other scientists there that also have maybe one line of dialogue in the issue, and I'm assuming Slott is setting up these characters to also be more fleshed out in his run. If he's going for the entire science team is Iron Man aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess if you're good, I'll throw it over to myself here to just do the next to do my I really kind of did not like this issue just because I don't think Dan Slott's voice for Tony Stark is good. He tries really, really hard to just do a Robert Downey Jr. impression.
Mm-hmm.
And when your character is quipping every other sentence and acting like a pompous jackass, it's really hard for me to get around to liking the protagonist of a book. And that's how it comes off. It comes off like he's trying too hard, and hopefully Slott finds his voice better. The art in this issue is fine. Again, the one shot we get of the armors is good. So the artist can draw the armors really well, which is important. But I'm always more interested in Tony out of the suit than inside the suit. And I like the setup of a new company, especially with a new take that the people are playing just the biggest part of being Iron Man as Tony is. But at the same time, I there's like I cannot get or Slott's voice for Tony. I just think it's really really annoying and just pompous. Which Tony Stark can be, but that's usually in the center of media cameras, not when he's interacting with people on his own science team.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's like, yeah, because like the tone of him sounds like, it's funny you mentioned that, because I don't remember him being this pompous since Superior Iron Man, which was like the height of him being like a jackass and being a dick. But this is, I agree with you though. Yeah,
because I much like the Tony Stark that's written like in Fraction and Gillen's run, where he's a man trying to figure out a solution to a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of have that, but like Tony when he's alone isn't like making jokes all the time.
Oh no, yeah.
So, but in here he is. So as I said, I gave this a 2 out of 5. But I'm not saying skip it. I'm definitely going to trade weight this and see how we grow here, because I'm open to Slott maybe finding his voice as we go on here. As a first issue though, I just his Tony is just too much. It's need to tone that down.
Yeah, Dan, before I jump in, you want to give us your rating real quick, and then I assume you'll be sticking with it.
Yeah, I guess I'm probably gonna go 4 out of 5 on this. I you know, I think it's gonna it could definitely improve. I mean, I have read a lot of good Dan Slott stuff, not including Spider-Man obviously, but I've read his She-Hulk stuff. So I'm hoping that like if he can kind of turn it around like that, if he can write this book kind of like how he wrote She-Hulk, like I think this has potential to be a good book, because I really like that run. But we'll just have to see, I guess. You know, I guess I will be buying the issues if I can find them. I've went to a few stores and they don't have them, so I don't know what that means.
This book came out 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah, I must have missed it. I'll have to pick it up.
So me, I'm kind of halfway between Mike and Dan. Like, I'm okay with the characterization, but as plot goes on, I want him to dig deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I joked about like bringing back the alcoholism, which off air Mike was like, "Oh, that's so original." But like, whether it's that or something, like if a few issues from now it's like, "Oh, Tony is acting such like in this way and being so positive and cheery because he's dealing with something else," then I would like to see that, where you get some of the nuance where like he's putting up a facade. And especially like when you consider some of the stuff that's been going on, like Tony, quote unquote, died for a little bit. He saw his best friend die in front of him. His other best friend sort of took over the world and put it under a fascist dictatorship.
Wait, when you say best friend die in front of you, you're talking about Rhodey?
Yeah, I'm talking about Rhodey, and then
Rhodey did not die in front of him. That happened off panel when he just showed up and like saw his dead body.
Okay, but yeah, I mean he saw. I mean, and I think it was on TV, so he saw the footage later. Thanos punched him through the chest or whatever.
Yeah, and yeah, you continue.
Yeah, so Rhodey is in this book, which I don't know if we actually mentioned, and he's used pretty well here. But it's interesting that, for one, there's no mention whatsoever that he used to be dead, and then Bendis very sloppily just brought him back with little explanation, which I think is good. But we also don't really get any reference at all to War Machine, which I don't expect in the first issue. But it'll be interesting as the run evolves to see how Slott uses Rhodey in suits, if at all.
I do like his role here, though, as the government, as the military liaison to Stark's company, though.
I loved seeing Jocasta. That was a real surprise for me. For like tons of lengths of time, Marvel hasn't really known what to do with her once they get her away from Ultron. And also, when Bethany Cave first showed up, I'm not like a super Iron Man fan. So for a half second, I'm like, why is Mary Jane Watson wearing this weird? Because Bendis was using MJ in his Iron Man book for no reason. And it's Slott coming over, so maybe there are some tenuous Spider-Man connections, but it was Bethany Cave, and there's no mention whatsoever of MJ, which, again, kind of happy about, probably the best move, and not spoiling it, but look for another Fresh Start episode from us where we cover Amazing Spider-Man, where MJ does show up. So all the pieces are back in the right boxes. I like Valerio Schiti's art. It is more cartoony, and it seems like even with specifically with Iron Man, like they're going for kind of more of an anime mecha influence. Like the Fin Fang Foom Buster and just fighting Fin Fang Foom. And then later on, I think Andy Bang even makes like a reference to Gigantor. So it's very much evocative of like anime and Pacific Rim and stuff like that. I have a feeling that this run is going to fuck around with the armors a lot. I think they put out some concept art, and the armors look all kinds of weird, which I'm a little iffy on, but I hope they'll be a little more measured with it.
Well, maybe Dan knows this, but assuming the way I'm like piecing this together, Tony's in a brand new body, right? Is he in a new body, or is it like his same body?
I think it's the same body somehow, but like replenished. I don't know. I did read.
Assuming that he doesn't have Extremis anymore because the suit no longer kind of boots up within him. Like he has to physically get into a suit again, which is the first time we've seen in a long time.
And that's all right. I mean, I don't really. Extremis at some point kind of got a little out of hand about how in depth it went into his skin and all that shit.
Oh yeah, that the problem is that inherently is with Fraction's run, where by the point he got to Bleeding Edge, that was the end all be all armor. So technically, there really should have been no more advancement after that, which is a detriment to Fraction's run. So anytime you go back, it's going to feel like a detraction. But I just found that odd. So I'm guessing he doesn't have any source of that in his system anymore, which I'm kind of down for that because it's going to add 4 more armors and more opportunities to explore this new science team's ingenuity and Tony's.
Definitely.
Yeah. Just other last comment. I'm also hoping that Dan Slott stays away from the whole parentage and brother retcons from Gillen and Bendis.
We don't need that. We don't need that in an Iron Man book.
And then overall, I'm kind of between you guys. I would give this a 3 out of 5, maybe leaning like 3.5 out of 5 if we're doing a 10-point scale. I thought it was pretty solid.
All right. And I guess I'll carry us on to the final book of this rundown, which is Earth's Mightiest Heroes, The Avengers, #1 by Jason Aaron and Ed McGuinness. Yeah. So the synopsis for this book is it's kind of a continuation. It's a continuations of 2 other books. We start with the Avengers BC again, which that was in the Legacy one-shot. So continuing that, and then it's also continuing from the Free Comic Book Day preview issue, which that was Black Panther talking to Odin about the Avengers BC and how that they need to prepare because the same thing's going to happen again. I like all the Avengers BC stuff. This is going to sound almost hypocritical of me, but because I normally like heroes when it's not some sort of called destiny, but I do like the fact that like you can trace back, like there's like an Avengers like team all the way back in history, and I like that sense of like history repeating itself here with the BC Avengers fighting these like super Celestials, and now this new group of Avengers having to assemble as well. And it's the first time in a long time that for this current team that we've actually seen Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, and Thor all together again. Like,
Yeah.
it's been a while. So them all, like after you get through the Avengers BC part, where they take down the Celestial, it cuts to them all having a toast. And it was like that was really nice to see, as it's kind of cementing a back to basics approach, which I like.
Did you notice what the bar is called on the menu?
No, what is it?
It's errands, which I
Oh my
really
god.
hoping Jason Aaron didn't tell the artist to do that, because that's so masturbatory.
But as they're all talking, Steve is very adamant that it's time to put together a new Avengers, as there's no current team to defend the Earth. And now that three of them are finally back, it's the perfect time to do it. And once again, kind of a gripes with the way Aaron writes Tony here, but I kind of forgive it since it's an ensemble book. But Tony's kind of apprehensive to put together a new Avengers team. But before they can, but Thor is very much on Steve's side to create a new team. But as this discussion's going on, Tony gets an alert on his watch of an oncoming threat, and we cut to Black Panther and Doctor Strange working together as they're investigating the center of the Earth.
Oh yeah.
Which I liked all of that, and then we cut to Robbie Reyes, who's dealing with his new Ghost Rider powers and how he just fought Starbrand in the Legacy one shot, and his kind of powers are going out of whack. Something's going on with She-Hulk where she's like has this heightened rage.
That called?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's called, and then she almost kills someone. And Captain Marvel, who's still part of Alpha Flight, which is in space for some reason. I don't know why they're calling it Alpha Flight. I never got that. She's trying to stop this falling Celestial, as Tony, Steve, and Thor are on their way to stop it as well. And we don't actually see the Avengers form yet. We have a bunch of subgroups like Thor, Steve, Tony, and Captain Marvel all meet up after the one Celestial's taken down. But Ghost Rider hasn't, like, we only saw him for a couple pages. We only saw She-Hulk for a few pages, and then Doctor Strange and Black Panther are doing their thing. So this is very much kind of setting the stage for the heroes to come together, just like Avengers #1, which I like, because I'm assuming this is going to give like at the end of all of this, they're going to have to team up and fight this big threat. And I'm totally down with that. I really, really enjoyed this issue. And it's the first I've seen Ed McGuinness's art look this good in a very long time. His She-Hulk is a little weird on the cover, but that's because Jason Aaron said that She-Hulk's going through some sort of metamorphosis thing, so she's like becoming more savage or something. So I guess we'll see how that's handled, but she's only in this book right now for like 2 panels. But as far as a setup issue for Avengers, I'm kind of down with this to see where it goes. I gave this a 4 out of 5, and I definitely would pull this book, especially with Jason Aaron being the kind of the head honcho top writer at Marvel now that Bendis has gone to DC.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty great overall. I think this is a great issue and great forming the team. It seems like Aaron is trying to bring the Avengers back to the way that the Avengers were seen for like the first 30, 40 years, before you had Disassembled and then all the Hickman stuff, all the inversion, whatever they're called. But I just have a few little comments and a few little nitpicks. At the bar scene, one of them, it's probably Tony, he's like, Hydra Cap, Coma Tony, and Unworthy Thor was a bumpy ride. And I'm like, you can say that again. And I can't tell if some of this is like Jason Aaron doing meta commentary, because he can't relate to that much of an extent, because of course Unworthy Thor, that was all him. So it's like, is he like apologizing and saying like, oh yeah, that period was kind of rough, we're sorry about that?
Meta apology where like there was fan backlash because for so long the original, I guess, big three characters were not themselves for, was it almost like 3 to 5 years? That's a pretty long time.
Yeah. And then Tony, you were talking about this, but Tony's like, we should just retire and he's like, I can name 30 characters that could be on the Avengers. And I'm like, that's kind of true. And I also don't exactly want that. I don't know. It's always complicated because the Avengers, there's a rotating membership, but it's also more so than say like the X-Men. You always want certain characters on the Avengers. Like that team should be somewhat static, just like the Justice League.
Yeah, that plays in two parts. One, because from a sales perspective, you want to have your big name characters sell your team book. And two, if you don't have those characters there, then the team isn't looked as in strong a light. Perfect example of that would be like Justice League Detroit, for example. Even though you like that, you both have to sit there and go like, kind of a dark period for the Justice League in the sense that like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman aren't on that team, and the big guns that were on that team were Aquaman and Martian Manhunter.
And then some nitpicks. I don't know, whatever. Also in the bar scene, Cap says something. He basically says, quote, I'm paraphrasing, but he says it has to be like the beginning with the three of us. And I'm like, first of all,
No.
Cap wasn't there in the beginning.
Until number 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cap shows up in issue 4. What about Hank and Janet the entire time?
Yeah, fuck them.
And then also the three of them, once Cap does join, the three of them were only together for about a year, like exactly 12 issues before everyone left the team besides Cap, and he was stuck with the Kooky Quartet.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, Cap, you may be hitting old age. You're getting some memory loss.
Well, it's revisionist history.
Well, it's the beginning of his service as the Avengers for him, so maybe that's what he's thinking.
Yeah, it's the whole Captain America, the first Avenger bullshit.
Yeah. So.
And there's been lots of
look at that line as you could also look at that line as the sense of like, when you think of the Avengers, who are the 3 characters that zeitgeist wise come to mind? It's those 3 people.
Okay.
And there's been some commentary. A lot of people have pointed out how this plot line with the Celestials is vaguely familiar. It's almost the exact same thing as Justice League No Justice.
Almost down to the celestial designs. They're both very much kind of the same plot.
Yeah. But I'm totally down for this run. I'd give it a 4 out of 5, and I'm really looking forward to following it. I hope that McGinnis keeps up on the art for a little bit, or at least when they eventually have to pull someone else in, it'll be someone good, and they'll do a full arc and not have like actual fill-ins. I'm a little wary about Aaron making huge changes to continuity and lore with Avengers BC and just this new Celestials backstory. But overall, I'm all down.
Yeah, and I guess just to chime in too and give my 2 cents. Yeah, that whole thing with the Avengers BC is, I mean, we'll see where that goes. Hopefully, that's not like a recurrent thing. I hope it's just for like this arc and then it kind of moves on. But like you guys mentioned a lot, opening with the triumvirate of Marvel, with the big 3 there. I think that's kind of the right move to do when you're starting a new book. You want to establish those 3. Setting up all this stuff is great. So I think this is definitely something that I'm probably going to be looking out for, whether it be, collecting in singles or trade. The one thing I want to say though, just to go back, I know this is kind of random, but the whole thing with like She-Hulk being catcalled, like she wasn't even like, she was like wearing like a hoodie and shit. Like, I don't understand like why, and wasn't it some like old dude that was doing it too? It was weird.
It was like, no, it wasn't an old guy. It was.
Oh, I thought it was. But it was just strange. Like she was like walking around like a hoodie and shit, and then someone was catcalling her. For a second, I didn't even know it was her, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I know. So
yeah, as far as the characters that Aaron is using, I'm most worried about what he's going to do with She-Hulk. Just as far as she's had a pretty rocky evolution the past few years with this whole, like, she took over the Hulk book and was gray for a bit. And then I'm pretty sure that was totally fixed. And then Aaron's basically going right back into like, oh, she's going to be Savage again, which I don't know. It's whatever. If he does it well, that's okay. But I like She-Hulk because she's very different from her cousin. And she is like the happy-go-lucky character who happens to be green and super strong all the time.
Well, how do you feel? I'll ask both of you. How do you feel about the team? Because I think this team's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, this team's stacked. I think, you have all the choices are really good. And I really do like seeing like Doctor Strange and Black Panther, like on their little side quest. I think that was a really good choice to have those two together because, they're both really smart dudes. So like their conversations were really cool to listen to. But yeah, and I guess one more thing too is I'm glad that they're throwing in Robbie Reyes into this mix. I mean, I know he's had a shaky start here at Marvel, but I'm excited to see like kind of how they incorporate his story because I know they were showing Gabe a little bit, which is his brother who's like mentally disabled and all that stuff. So, kind of tying back to his ongoing series that was canceled. Rest in peace. But I'm excited to see where they go.
It reminds me of like Morrison using Kyle Rayner on his JLA run. Like you have a long-standing character that, I mean, though Green Lantern was always part of the Justice League, Ghost Rider not so much the Avengers, but it's a great way to spotlight a lesser-known, newer character and make them feel like they matter. So Robbie standing next to Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, Captain Marvel, Doctor Strange, and Black Panther, like it's definitely gives him a rub.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, even still, Robbie's interesting choice because Aaron has history with the Ghost Rider franchise, so it'll be interesting to see how you use that.
Is a history of kind of ruining Ghost Rider.
And then my other comment is I believe Aaron has said that Doctor Strange is kind of like the rotational spot on the team.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah. Well, I'm personally not a huge fan of Doctor Strange being on the Avengers for an extended period. I think he works better on himself or like as an advisor kind of character. But so I believe Aaron has said that slot will be kind of rotating out. So Strange is probably around for the first arc, maybe the first year or so, and maybe we'll get some.
That would make sense if since Mark Waid's taking him to space.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're coming out at the same time. Who knows about continuity nowadays?
I will say though, the final page of Captain America yelling "Avengers Assemble" with the big three, that was a perfect way to end the book.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a great page, but also isn't Carol like next to them at this point?
Yes. Well, I think she flew off. She flies off to attack the next one. They're getting ready to follow her.
All right. Yeah, I guess they haven't formally formed the team yet, but beyond the three of them.
Yeah, that's funny.
But this is the end right now of our first episode of the Fresh Start Initiative, I guess. Working title and whatever we're going to call this. But overall, I have two books I gave a positive rating to and two books that I gave a non-positive rating to. So as of right now, we're sitting at 500 for me. You guys, Dan, you have positive numbers all across the board, and Vince, you have one kind of negative review.
Yeah, I think overall it is a fresh start. You can jump into most of these pretty easily, and all of them are, for the most part, they all at least have some promise, and they're doing something semi-new.
Yeah, and that's the thing, with all these number one issues, I mean, a lot of times, the series has to kind of figure itself out. So I think, as we go along, we'll kind of see some of these, our opinions will probably change going into issues 2 and 3 and 4, but, I'm excited to read all this stuff. It was really cool.
As far as Avengers is concerned, I loved this issue, and I'm definitely down to see what Aaron does as he continues on. It's the only book that I really have that. It's the only book I said I'd pull if I have a pull list right now. I just don't have I can't afford singles anymore. Plus, they take up too much space.
Same.
Yeah, well, in 4 years we'll have a Jason Aaron Avengers omnibus,
Exactly, and I can sit on it.
and we'll have a nice Ed McGuinness splash image on the boards when you take off the dust jacket.
Here's the thing. I hope he. I mean, the way the Avengers books work now is you're probably going to have rotational artists. But if we can get like you said, Vince, if we can get Ed McGuinness to do like the first full arc with no delays, it's gonna look great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here's just a dumb question, and then we'll close out. So 2 of the books we reviewed today are miniseries. Jason Aaron on Avengers. Ignore Ed McGuinness because we already talked about the art could be shaky. How many issues do you predict Jason Aaron will write for the Avengers? How long is this one?
30.
I'm gonna give it 40.
I'll go in the middle. I'll say like 36.
Okay, yeah. I think Aaron sticks around relatively long. I mean, I think his shortest run recently was Doctor Strange, which was only 20 issues.
Was it only 20? I thought it might have been. Was it only 11 or 12?
No, it's 2 hardcovers. It's like 20.
Okay.
But even that was a surprise. I mean, you look at his Thor run, his Wolverine and the X-Men run, all of his like runs that he seems to care about a ton, they usually stick around. But of course, he does have super short runs like his Hulk. And all right, what about Dan Slott on Iron Man?
Ooh.
Is he gonna be around for 10 years like Spider-Man?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I don't think so.
No one writes 10 years worth of comics anymore.
I'll be surprised if this goes to like 30 issues.
I'll be surprised if I'll say that. Can I give a range? I feel like this is probably going to be 15, 20, maybe 25.
Yeah. 25 is probably the max.
No more than 27.
I put it around 30, 28 to 30. That's what I'm going to put it. I think Dan Slott has longevity, and he'll be working also on Fantastic Four, which we'll eventually get to on this series. But as long as he doesn't have another major distraction, I think he likes to stick around and really dig in.
Well, normally he writes what? His cap is what, about 3 books a month?
Not really. 8, like, I guess
2.
I guess maybe 2.5, because Spider-Man was usually running 18 books a year, and then he'd usually have a second book like Silver Surfer, which was monthly.
And then like maybe a mini series or something.
Yeah, so we'll see.
And what else is Jason Aaron writing? Is this it? No, he's still writing Thor.
Yep.
So he's only writing 2, which is interesting.
All right. Thanks for watching, everyone, and tune in next time for more Fresh Start reviews. Peace.
Yay.
See ya.